Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota. Wolves Summer League concludes, Olympics starting, and which Timberwolves player needs to take the biggest step? It's all coming up on the Minnesota basketball party.
This is Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. It's endless Minnesota Timberwolves talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota basketball party on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Wolves talk every Wednesday here on Locked On Sports Minnesota. It's the Minnesota basketball party. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Ben Beacon on Locked On Wolves, where he produces daily Wolves content. Wherever you get your podcasts on the Locked On Wolves feed, it's also where you can find our audio of this show. And please subscribe to the video at Locked On Sports Minnesota. We don't have Ben today, but we do have a good story about Ben and Reggie coming up here in just a moment. We've got a lot more to get to, including Rob Dillingham looking like a star in the Summer League finale. The Timberwolves are maybe going to play on opening night. We'll talk about their increased national exposure and preview the Olympics with Ant and Team USA. That's all coming up on an episode that is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. As usual, we have a great panel of experts. Let's meet them with our opening tip.
Reggie Wilson, sports director at Care 11, and Rob Dillingham. Heard you talking, Sam. He took that personally.
I'm Ron Johnson, former Gophers wide receiver, Gophers Hall of Famer, and NFL wide receiver. I'm excited about training camp, but I'm also excited that this T-shirt here, we might get a lot of these with Anthony Edwards' face on it eventually this season for basketball.
It says Mr. Grinch for those that are listening. It's a Grinch shirt in July.
He's going to embrace his Kobe, and I'll explain that.
I'd have loved the listeners to just guess as to what Ron was wearing there. I'm Jack Borman, co-host of the Locked On Wolves postcast with my man Luke Inman, former editor-in-chief at Canis Hoopus. I'm going to talk a little bit about why I think that Rob Dillingham's Summer League performance is kind of interestingly translatable to the regular season. So we've got some historical stats that back up kind of what he did well and what he didn't do well, and how that may get Wolves fans excited.
Well, that's fantastic. Can't wait to get to that. And again, I'm Sam Ekstrom, executive producer here at Locked On Sports Minnesota. Before we dive into all of this, we just got to highlight one of those small world stories that happened with this crew over the weekend. I get a picture on my phone. It's Reggie, and it's Ben Beacon. Now, Ben Beacon lives in Oklahoma, for those that don't know. He's not on the show today, unfortunately. Ben's in Oklahoma. Reggie's here. I get a picture of the two of them, Reggie, in Cooperstown. How did this come together?
So we were at the Hall of Fame parade on Saturday, and waiting on all the Hall of Famers to go by. Several Twins made the trip to Cooperstown this weekend, which was pretty cool, supporting their man Joe. All four St. Paul guys were in town, which was really cool to see. They took a picture. You can see that on Twitter. But Joe and his family passed by in the Legends Parade. He was like the last person to go. Just, I guess, based on his last name in the Hall of Fame class, he was just always last with everything. And so once it's over, we're finishing up live shots for Care 11, talking about, all the Hall of Fame festivities in the weekend. There's different people from Minnesota. Minnesota showed up strong in Cooperstown. It was crazy. It was like crowd strike be darned. Like, they were coming for Joe. People love Joe.
And they all got stranded, but
they made it. They made it at one point or another. And so it was really cool just, interacting with Twins fans that were really excited to be there. And there were people walking up to me like all weekend, just like, "Hey, Reggie, what's happening?" I'm like, "Hey." And then all of a sudden, we're standing there, we're packing our stuff up, getting ready to go to the next spot. The Twins were throwing Joe Mauer this epic party, the biggest party in Cooperstown. And we're about to leave, and all of a sudden I hear, "Hey, Reggie." And I turned around, and it was Ben Beacon, which was crazy because this is a little inside info. I don't know that this is shameful or not, but I used to do a whole podcast with Luke Inman. We stay in the same city and I have not met Luke Inman in person yet, which is the craziest thing. The craziest thing, Luke, if you're listening, we got to set that up, man. Do lunch or something. This is ridiculous. It's crazy. But anyway, run into Ben Beacon, which, what are the odds? Like you said, he lives in Oklahoma, from Minnesota, hasn't lived in Oklahoma, or hasn't lived in Minnesota for like more than a decade. And so we run into each other. He's there. He and his wife are celebrating their anniversary. So they dropped the kids off in Minnesota with the Grants, made a trip to New York, made the drive down to Cooperstown, or up to Cooperstown, I should say. And we just happened to run into each other on the corner on Main Street, up the street from the Hall of Fame Museum. And we just talked for like 10 to 15 minutes. It was like talking to someone who's a friend who, it's like, that must be like what people, when you don't get catfished and it just like works out. You meet somebody online and you talk to people and you're like, oh man, I would love to meet you in person. Then you meet them in person and you're catfish. Like, it was the opposite of a catfish. It was really dope meeting he and his wife. They were really, really cool. So I don't know when the next time I'll see Ben Beacon, but it was a really cool interaction for the 15, 20 minutes that we got to engage.
Yeah. It could be the only time in your life you meet in person, which is crazy. Like, it's the small world stories never cease to amaze me. Ron running into Kirk Cousins in Disney World. I've got a million of them too. Like, finding people in random airports is just, it always blows my mind when it happens. So that was a cool picture to get in Cooperstown. We should have been back next week. We'll get his side of the story there. But the Wolves and the Summer League, 4-1. Unfortunately, it's really hard to make the semifinals in the Summer League. You got to be like perfect, basically. Wolves didn't make the semis. They do finish 4-1 in the Summer League. And Rob Dillingham, 25-12 in his Summer League finale. We saw it from Terrence Shannon early, and we saw it from Rob Dillingham late. And I'm not asking a lot in Summer League, right? You're a rookie. You're not going to be perfectly consistent yet, but show me your ceiling. Show me something. Give me a glimpse. And I think we got the glimpse from Shannon. We got the glimpse from Dillingham. And we're left with a really good impression of Dillingham going into the training camp regular season. Now, ESPN still wrote a story and said he was like the most disappointing player in all of Summer League. Wild to me that they would come away with that after a 25-12, because Jack Borman's going to tell us why this is important.
Yeah, no question about it. I think, the thing with Rob Dillingham, and you have to keep in mind at these Summer League games, is when it comes to scoring the ball, it's just a little bit of a cluster, right? Because you have so many different guys that are trying to prove themselves. It's really chaotic. You look at the average, number of turnovers in a game in a Summer League game versus an NBA game. There's more in Summer League games, even though the games are, only 10-minute quarters now. So the games are just really chaotic, and it's pretty hard to settle down and find a flow. And because of that, assists are actually one of the 5 stats that translate most from Summer League to NBA play. Looking at which stats are most predictive of NBA performance, and that's courtesy of Owen Phillips, his great Substack, the F5 from a couple years ago. And what's least translatable are free throw percentage, 3-point percentage, steals, free throw attempts, and field goal percentage. So basically all the things that Rob Dillingham struggled with a little bit are things that you don't really have to worry about not translating super well from Summer League to the NBA. And you have to think about too with Rob Dillingham, like when he's going to be out there, like he's for sure going to be out there with guys like Jaden McDaniels and Rudy Gobert. So you don't have to worry too much about him just getting hunted every single time down the floor defensively. And then offensively, if he's out there with guys like Ant and Karl Anthony Towns, even Jaden, maybe Naz Reid, I mean, he's going to be the 4th or 5th option out there on the floor. Whereas with this Summer League team, he's the guy that's bringing the ball up the floor every single time. He's the guy that opposing teams probably have circled as the number 1 guy that they have to slow down. But in that last game, what was most impressive about what Dillingham did was the fact that he was passing guys open. He was creating for himself in order to create advantages that he could use to set his teammates up. We saw him throw several lobs to Leonard Miller over the last couple of games, which was fantastic out of the dunker spot. Those are things that, will work really well with Rudy Gobert. And I think too, when you look at Rob Dillingham, the fact that he averaged 7.6 assists over the 5 games to 3.5 turnovers, I think having an assist turnover ratio north of 2. I mean, if you would have sat here and told me that would have been the case for Rob Dillingham, I would have been really pleased with that. That's obviously something that we wanted to see more of from him. That's what the Summer League coaching staff wanted him to focus on primarily, was the playmaking. He was very good as a playmaker at Kentucky, just didn't do it all that often. So it was nice to see that pop on a bigger level. And I think, fans also, it was nice to kind of, leave with a good taste in your mouth of what he can do as a scorer, because he is a really special handle that can create a lot of looks for himself, and he can score in pick and roll. And, and he can certainly score and catch and shoot opportunities too as a 3-point shooter, which is something the Wolves are desperately going to need from him right away as a rookie. So it'll be kind of interesting that his role will change a little bit when he goes back to, when he plays in the NBA, just because he's going to be primarily a scorer rather than a playmaker. But nonetheless, it was really good to see him do the things that translate well. Again, 3-point attempts, assists, those types of things, and the things that don't translate as well, field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, things like that were where he struggled a little bit. So that's got to make Timberwolves fans feel a little bit better about the places that he did struggle.
It's good perspective. And yeah, Reggie, you're right. I kind of ripped him last week. I wanted to see the ball go in the basket more. And he did that. And I thought in that performance where he showed just so many good things, not only the assists, but the ability to score from beyond the arc, finish around the rim occasionally. I mean, he's not going in there with a size advantage over anybody. Still found a way to finish. I liked what I saw in that performance, and that puts me at ease a lot about what this guy can do.
Yeah, and we even saw some bounce, man. He can get up there at 6'1", dunking it kind of nastily, which was interesting to see. But as much as I am giving you a lot of flack, Sam, I guess I have to give myself some flack too. So when he got drafted, based on the tape that I saw, I said that he was going to be a great two guard. Everybody's like, "Are you crazy? He's the point guard of the future." And I was just like, "Well, yeah, but I don't know that was necessarily a natural thing. What I saw on tape is him being more of a scorer, and yeah, he can handle it, and yeah, maybe he has passing ability, but that wasn't necessarily on display in the tape that you watch at UK, at least from what I've seen." And everybody's like, "No, he's the point guard of the future." And I just thought that people were just saying that because of his size. Okay, that's where he pretty much lines up at, is a point guard of the future. But I'm just like, if you watch his game, that's not really what he does. But when he talked at his opening press conference, he was just like, "Look, I can make plays. I think I'm more of an underrated passer." He's like, "I think I'm a better passer than people might understand or people might give me credit for." And in the Summer League, he showed that. A 12 assist performance is nothing to sneeze at. And so I think what he showed me, to Jack's point, is not only is he just a scorer, he's a playmaker out on the floor. And I think that gives you a lot of confidence if you're a Wolves fan moving forward, because you're like, okay, even Mike Conley said, "Hey, I don't know how many more of these I have left." Well, you draft a guy who could be the point guard of the future. You get a guy who can be, a solid rotation wing guy in Terrence Shannon Jr. for years to come. And you see what they did in Summer League, and now you're like, oh, okay. The future kind of looks bright. And to Jack's point, I know it's Summer League. I know it's kind of clunky because guys are out there trying to get theirs. They're trying to get an NBA contract. It's a hustle in Summer League, and I get that, and I appreciate that. But from what you saw from Rob Dillingham, dare I say, there was a little Ja Morant in this game, a little quick, twitchy, type of a game where he's throwing some nice dimes, and you have to be on guard because maybe he'll pull up on you at any point. He could take you to the rim. And I was impressed by what I saw, especially as Summer League went on. It seemed like he just kind of got his legs a little bit underneath him a little bit more, and really kind of got comfortable out there, really being a leader on the floor.
Yeah, and Ron, you were weighing in on this on the Ron Johnson show yesterday. What was your take?
Yeah, I mean, mine is basic. When I look at a hooper, he's a hooper. And this is what I'll say. If Rob Dillingham was the 55th overall pick, and his dad was somebody we all knew, and he scored 25 and 12, he'd be all over SportsCenter right now. They would also found a way for him to make it to the semis. So I when I watched those highlights, Sam, you sent me, like he actually went off. And again, I watched some other little clips here and there that people on Twitter posted. I watched a little bit of the games. He's exciting. And I say this, he does not have to, when you're playing against, again, I have to remember, some of these guys are not going to be playing in the NBA. Some of these guys are not going to even be on the G League team. But the things he was doing, it's transitionable into anybody guarding you, because he's creating space off the dribble. He's hitting that additional step back. Now, I don't know if Summer League refs are as detailed as the NBA refs. A couple of those might be considered travels, because I know the NBA is kind of cracking down a little bit on the James Harden. They're trying to make sure guys are actually still with it, that gather, then the sidestep, versus catch it, then you sidestep. That's a travel. But he's creating space. And when you see that with Anthony Edwards, when Mike Conley comes off the floor, you put Cat on the floor with him, with Jaden McDaniels and what's his name, Naz Reid, where you can spread the floor out. Now you have a guy that can actually create his own shot. Now you have a guy that can actually drive if they're gonna, too many eyes are on Anthony Edwards, too many eyes are on Cat. Now the lane is open to drive because you don't have Rudy Gobert in there. But then a bunch of the alley-oop passes as he's driving to the lane, like his ability to say, okay, I might have a shot. Oh, wait, here's that guy, in the accuracy in which he was throwing those oops in that game. With a guy, like I said, a guy like Anthony Edwards, like screaming through the lane, a guy like Cat and a guy like Rudy. This kid can be an asset, but we'll see how he transitions. Because again, when you get Kawhi, when you get PG-13, when you get, Klay Thompson's a little wash, but when you get Kyrie, then I want to see what you do. And that's what I think even the Timberwolves are waiting to see.
Coming up, our Christmases may have that was a very poor tease. Coming up, we know what we're doing on Christmas. How about that? It's coming up next on the Minnesota Basketball Party. Let me show you Game Time in action. It's an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball. Tickets are very fast and easy to get. The Twins play in 2.5 hours against the Phillies. Best team in baseball. I just opened up the Game Time app. I'm looking at the grid of seats. $27 to get in the building. $27. And that price could go down the closer you get to first pitch. You can sit almost behind home plate for $74. You can be field box for $56. Unbelievable deals right now. Game Time. It's right here. I'm looking at the panoramic views. Am I pointing to it? Panoramic views from your seat at Game Time. All in prices, no hidden fees. And they've got incredible in-app deals like the ones I just showed you. That's Game Time at its best. You want to go check out the Twins game? Maybe you're watching this live right now, and you say, yeah, I do have the afternoon off. I'd like to see the Twins and the Phillies. Phillies don't come here very often. You can go to Game Time, download it now, and you can get money off your purchase. Here's what you do. Download the app, create your account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, let me give you a date, fellas. The date, January 18th. That was the first time the Wolves were on national TV last year, like 2 months into the season, 3 months into the season. They were on ESPN or TNT just 5 times a year ago. And now we are getting reports that the Wolves could be not only playing on opening night, but also on Christmas as one of the myriad Christmas Day games. There's like 5 of them. So I guess it's not quite as big an accomplishment to play on Christmas anymore. But nonetheless, the Wolves are getting the Anthony Edwards bump. The national exposure is coming their way. And I guess I wouldn't be surprised, Ron Johnson, to see the Wolves on national TV 10, 15 times this year. We're going to get used to Charles Barkley. We're going to get used to Shaq and Kenny and Ernie talking about the Timberwolves, because they are going to be, I think, a national item. Ron, I want your take on that, but also, how do you think they're going to handle having that bigger spotlight? They're not coming out of nowhere anymore.
I mean, this man is playing for America right now. So, I mean, he will be just fine. Now the rest of the team, like I think Jaden McDaniels has that dog in him. Nas Reed couldn't care less. Like I think he probably he reminds me of Matt Barnes. Like he's probably lighting one up, or he's like, I'm good. I don't really care. He has that Steven Jackson, Matt Barnes feel to Nas Reed. Like I think that's coming with his game, where he's just really going to start not giving a dang and just bumping people and just talking a little bit more as he gets more comfortable with that team. But I think nationally they'll be fine. Rudy Gobert doesn't even know what country he's in half the time, so I think he'll be fine too. He just shows up and he plays basketball, and he's worried about is his wife about to have another baby, like that. Like he doesn't really care. I think the one person I'm nervous about, and I think everybody can be, Cat on prime time, national nonstop. And I feel like if he's not getting the coverage, or he's not getting the conversation, or he's not the guy anymore, because he's not right now is Anthony Edwards. He didn't make the USA team. And I know that probably he's like, dang, okay. Like, I just don't know if he's going to be able to handle it and be okay with his role on the team moving forward, where he might force the issue sometimes on like national nights, knowing that the big time guy gets to sit up there with Chuck and But I do know this, and I don't know if they're going to do this and maybe because it's in season, Draymond Green won't have anything to do it. They declined those guys before because of how Draymond was talking about Rudy. So I wonder where they lie with that, but I'm excited to see this. I think Anthony Edwards on Christmas Day is primed to do what Kobe did, which is get a shoe with Adidas that's lime green, because that's already in their colors. Lime green, maybe throw red in there for Christmas, or maybe just throw the blue in there, but you make it the Grinch shoes, just like Kobe did, the reverse Grinch, or however you want to do it. Maybe one shoe's lime green and whatever, the other shoe's the red and the green. But I feel like he's the guy that can do that. Like he's the one guy that I think everybody's like, he could be the next Kobe. He could be the next Jordan. Like he has that I don't give a crap about anybody on this court type of feel. And that's why I think Anthony Edwards is built for national TV.
Wolves Nuggets feels like that's going to be a national TV game most of the time when they meet, after what went down last year in that playoff series, the tension, the star power. I mean, that alone, that could be an opening night, like a prime time, the second game on opening night after, I'm sure, the Celtics play in the first one. Jack Borman.
It'll be the Lakers with Bronny. You know that.
Yeah, good point.
They got to get that out there first.
It's funny that you bring up Nuggets and Wolves, because I was going to say, Ron, you must have forgotten what Karl Anthony Towns did in that series against the Nuggets. He was, fantastic for the Timberwolves, and all those games were the most watched games of the playoffs in those series. And we've said the thing about Karl all year last year. And what did he do? He was like, hey, this is Ant's team. I love it for Ant. And he also didn't get selected to Team USA because he's representing the Dominican Republic. But at any rate, for Ant, I think it's more just like, it's really cool for the city, I think, more than anything, because the league now gets to see just how crazy of an environment Target Center is. I think that was personally one of my favorite parts of the run, was that people were talking about Target Center as this crazy, raucous environment. And these fans have shown out, really since the run 3 years ago, and have really, I think, put themselves in a position now where they deserve the opportunity to go support a team on opening night or on Christmas Day. So I think it's really fun for them to escape probably the political 5 o'clock dinner talk over some ham, and instead go down to Target Center and watch Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns and the guys, give it to whoever's coming in. I think that's going to be the fun thing about Ant too, is like when you talk about who are the 3 or 4 or 5 guys that, are going to host a Christmas Day game every year that you want playing, for it to be a guy like Ant, I think, who is as popular as he is around the league, I think is only going to increase the popularity too of some of the the more fringe guys that the Wolves are talking about, like Nas Reed or Jaden McDaniels or Nickeil Alexander-Walker, which I think is fun too, because I think the more that America kind of started catching on to the Nas Reed thing, and the more everyone kind of started to say, oh, who's this Nickeil Alexander-Walker guy? I like the way he's getting into Jamal Murray and all that. I think that's kind of what's most gratifying for fans, is that when their kind of role player obsessions or, guys off the bench obsessions kind of captivate the nation, I think are really fun. So it's really cool, obviously, that it's Ant's team, but I think the way that Ant is, just by being himself, brings a spotlight to the rest of his teammates and gives them a stage like opening night or like Christmas Day, in the way that he does, I think is really fun and is something that the Wolves fans certainly deserve, and will be really, really interesting to see how that all plays out, and to see kind of how that impacts maybe, Ron talked about Ant being on Team USA. Well, who knows if, it's Ant's one of them ones, man. And we'll see if he's going to be able to recruit like some of these guys and Team USA have, because it doesn't seem like other guys are going to recruit Ant somewhere else. It kind of seems like Ant's going to be the guy that would be doing the recruiting.
Got a little gravitational force to him, that's for sure. Reggie, you might be covering a Wolves game on Christmas, my friend.
Yeah, this is just a really prime time for Timberwolves basketball. I think they are just on the upswing. They're on the climb. Tim Connolly is going for it based on the moves that he's made over the last few seasons. This team has constantly improved, going up to last season when they knocked the champs out of the playoffs and got to the Western Conference Finals for the first time in 20 years. Like, I think this team is primed to be in the mix for years to come, and it's because of guys like Anthony Edwards. And I think as long as Ant is on that team, like, I think they're going to do it. I think what's really cool about Ant and him being in this position with Team USA is he gets to observe greatness every day for like a month. Like, he gets to see LeBron James in action. He gets to play with his idol, Kevin Durant. He gets to, play with all these guys that he goes against on a night in and night out basis, and just kind of sees what goes into making them great. And I think what's been cool about Ant, when you talk about like him coming out of Georgia, people are like, okay, well, like, does he really take the game seriously? I think Ant wants to be great more than anything else. And so he does what he needs to do. He goes to whatever links that he needs to go to try to be great each and every day. He doesn't want anybody to say that they got the best of him. He doesn't want anybody to say that they're better than him, because he feels like, he said he's the number one option. We saw in a couple of times LeBron is the number one option in these Team USA games, but I'm sure he feels confident. Like, look, if it came to me, like I could take the shot and I could do what LeBron did. Like, and you like that confidence. And what you see is just an ascending superstar in the game of basketball. And I think that's something that you'll continue to see. And this is like that prime era for Timberwolves basketball to be seen on national television. And I welcome it. Like, if they're playing on Christmas, that's an exciting thing. And it's deserved. Like, they've gone to the play-in a couple times and kind of fizzled out, but then this year kind of saw some of that potential being reached. And I think them doing that really kind of like put themselves in that stratosphere with other teams. You don't think necessarily maybe the Timberwolves are one of those teams, but I mean, they have a legit bona fide dude who could be a top 5 player in the league for years to come. And now the league is kind of showing that with giving them that national TV exposure.
Yeah, this is how you build momentum as a franchise. Think about the numerous years recently where on July 24th, you wouldn't have had a serious thought about the Timberwolves in like 6 months, because they were probably out of the running in January, and then the season was over in early April, and the offseason was quiet. Like that's been the story so many times, where you're at this stage of the summer and you haven't thought about the team in months. And it feels so different when you make a run into late May, and then you've immediately got free agency, you've immediately got the draft, right into Summer League, and now you've got a star in the Olympics. It's like the offseason, you haven't really had a dead time yet. You've been thinking about Timberwolves basketball for months and months, and it's all been good, right? It's all been exciting. That's how you build momentum as a franchise. Now,
to your point, Sam, Vikings training camp starts up today, and like it just seemed like it snuck up on me for some
Yeah.
reason, because like we've been talking about literally everything else, including Timberwolves, up until like late May into June.
Yeah, it totally changes the cadence of the sports calendar. Now, I'll end with a little reality check. The last 3 times I think the Wolves have had a lot of momentum coming off of a season, they've fallen on their face. 2 years ago with the Rudy trade didn't go well. You know, they gigantic alteration of the roster, some injury stuff didn't go well. Jimmy Butler's second year, Butler blows up the team, shattered that season. That was supposed to be a great year. And then go back to 2004 and 5. You brought back KG, Sprewell, and Cassell thinking you could run it back and win the championship after being a 1 seed, and they missed the playoffs. So the Timberwolves haven't exactly latched on to this momentum in the past. This team, I think, has a chance to do that, continue that momentum for multiple years, because this franchise has just had so many fits and starts. They've been unable to get real traction, get the ball rolling in the right direction. Let's talk just a little bit about Ant and Team USA. I mean, Reg, we'll just kick it back to you, and then we'll go Ron and Jack. Ant on Team USA, it feels like we saw the hierarchy a little bit with LeBron kind of starring at the end of the Germany game, end of the South Sudan game. I'm curious where Ant is ultimately going to fit into that pecking order, but I think seeing LeBron operate at the end of a game has great value for Ant. Like, what do you want him, like, and you kind of touched on this already, Reg, but what do you want to see Ant glean from that team?
I think you just want to see him like, so I remember like talking to Mark Spears during the Western Conference Finals, and they were down, it looked dead in the water for them at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
he was just like, man, like, a lot of people comparing him to Kobe, but like, there were times where Kobe just took the ball and was just like, get out of the way. I'm taking over this game. We are not losing. And he was like, I still feel like Ant has a little bit more that he can go to get to that point and be that dude that can really will the team to victory. Well, he's looking at a guy next to him that he's starring with on Team USA and LeBron James, who is 39 years old. Like, that should be motivation enough. The dude is 39 years old and still is the alpha for this Team USA team. That's plenty motivation. Looking at him, seeing how he closes, seeing the mentality that he has, picking his brain, being a student of the game, and really understanding, like, he has just a great opportunity to soak up not only just like visually, but also like with knowledge and conversation with these guys about what makes them great. He's chasing guys who have rings already. KD has rings already. LeBron has rings already. Anthony Davis has a ring already. All these dudes are, former MVPs of the league and all NBA champions and all that. Like, this is a great opportunity. Jason Tatum just got a ring. Like, you can talk to him a little bit. See, obviously that team that he was on really kind of propelled them to that ring. But when you are around greatness, it's impossible to like not soak up even just a little bit of that. And I think he has an opportunity to continue to raise his game when those. I think it's great too. Like, when I'm at a big sporting event and I know Channel 5 is there, Channel 9 is there, CCO is there, and we're all like, I'm in like, I need to kill this. Like, I need to make sure that people are turning to care to watch what we're doing more than any other channel, because they're getting something from me that they're not going to get from anybody else. That's my mentality, even though I love all those guys at the other stations. But that should be Ant's mentality. Like, hey, we're going out here on this floor. I know we're on the same team, but like, I want to shine, and not to the point where it's like detrimental to the team, but like, this is a chance for him to really raise his game to the level or even above the level of his teammates and really showcase that he is the dude, and then let that continue to fuel him, as the season approaches as well. And what I think could be an MVP type season for him next season.
Yeah, I mean, smaller scale example. I call the Gopher hockey games. Those guys who go to World Juniors, compete at the highest level in that age bracket, they come back and they feel like they're Superman, right? Like they have a whole new confidence about them after playing on the national stage for their country, Team USA on their jersey. Ron, your take on this?
So the only thing I'd be worried about, and I don't think this will happen on Anthony Edwards because, like Jack said, he's one of those ones. It's some people that just has a mindset when they're around, no matter who they're around, they elevate their team. The only thing, and I'm glad that it's happening, is when you watch, and I look at like veterans who post this stuff, like Katino Mobley. I forgot who else posts some stuff. There's a lot of standing around with the USA team because they have so many stars when they're on the floor. Like there's a lot of like ISO ball. There's a lot of like 2-man ball where the backdoor cutter, like, because I forgot who he posted, but basically Steph had it at the top. He set the pick. Anthony Edwards rolled around, and then LeBron just stood there. And he said, if LeBron cuts, it's an easy pass because the defender's eyes are on Steph and Anthony Edwards at that moment, because everybody's like, oh crap, what are one of these two about to do? But LeBron's standing there too, like, whoa, what is Anthony Edwards about to do? And so when you see that, I'm glad that he's seeing that. And I know Steve Kerr, one thing too, like I hope Steve Kerr doesn't do this, but some of the things, this has nothing to do with this topic. He cannot put that lineup on the floor that almost lost that game, like to the Sudan. He can't do that. Like, he can't start with that. It has to be Anthony Edwards. Like there's no reason to start who you're starting, like Devin Booker. He doesn't need to start. Like, I'm sorry. I don't care. But anyway, back to what I'm saying. I think Anthony Edwards coming away with this one is going to learn a little bit more like movement of the ball, what works, what doesn't work, closing out games with your big and your one, like Steph Curry with whoever's in. I think Anthony Davis was in there. Steph Curry with Joel Embiid. I think Anthony Edwards is going to learn a ton from that, and also just picking Spoelstra's mind, like understanding what the Heat did, what are they doing, because they're getting more with less, and the Timberwolves have more, and so how can they get more with more? And I think Anthony Edwards being able to learn from all these great coaches and be able to take that back to Finch as well. Like, hey, yo, we did this, or this is the defensive rotation we had because so-and-so could do this. I think he's going to learn a ton from this.
Jack.
Yeah, I think Ron nailed it. I think for me, it has so much more to do with, all the different intangibles rather than things on the floor. And we talked about, how great Ant was last season after, the Team USA experience he had last year in the World Cup in the Philippines. Ant was the best player on that team. I don't think a lot of people would argue against that. And now that may not necessarily be the case when you look at all the different superstars he has. So obviously his role on the floor is going to change a little bit. But I think for Ant, the biggest thing is you get the opportunity to learn from not only two of the best leaders in basketball, but two of the best leaders in sports. In LeBron James and Steph Curry. And you see the way that they interact with their teammates, the way they command a huddle, the way that they're, speaking with coaches, whether it's during the game, whether it's in prep, whether it's, off the floor, just trying to get to know guys better. Like, I think all that stuff matters because, Anthony Edwards turns 23 in a week or two here. And there's still some finer aspects of leadership that he needs to learn, and that's okay. Did any of us understand any of that at 23 years old? Probably not. So I think for him to be able to kind of be thrown into the deep end of the pool a little bit and to hang out with some other guys that have been swimming in that end for a long time is going to be really beneficial to the way I think that he carries himself. In the locker room back here in Minneapolis with his teammates at practice. The way that he can interact with his coaches, I think talking to Spo is a great example. Like Ant has a great relationship with Spo, and you can talk to Spo. Hey, what was the relationship like with you and LeBron when you guys were winning titles? How did LeBron kind of come in and talk to D Wade after D Wade had been the guy here for a long time, and then D Wade kind of takes a backseat to LeBron? Like, how did that work? Because obviously it's a little bit of a different. There's different levels to it, but there's obviously something similar there with Cat being the guy for a while, and now he takes the backseat because Ant comes in. So I think it's all those little things, and then honestly, I think the recruiting part of it is really important too. How often do we hear? So this, machination of a team started because these guys had a relationship playing with USA basketball. I think the more that, the more that these guys play on these teams together, the more you're going to see stuff like that. And if Ant can find a way to get another guy here, whether it's in this current iteration of the Timberwolves or kind of in the next iteration of the Timberwolves, 3, 4, 5 years from now, I think that's going to be something that we look back on and say, hey, maybe that started at the 2024 Paris Olympics. And so, it's just going to be really exciting to kind of see the downstream effects of Ant playing here, because it may not be something that we see right away next season, but it may be something that's kind of like a slow, a slow cooking thing over the next 2, 3, 4 years. And you're like, wow, man, that is something that I didn't really realize, in the moment, but you kind of look back over time and you just see that kind of slow, steady development is something that I think everybody would like to see from Anthony Edwards into next season.
Yeah, seed gets planted, then you got to let it grow. When we come back, we'll tell you which Timberwolves player needs to take the biggest step going into next season. Very quick pause here on the Minnesota Basketball Party. Make sure you check out all of our programming here at Locked On Sports Minnesota, the Ron Johnson Show on Tuesdays. Minnesota Football Party is live Mondays and Thursdays, and our Care 11 Roundtable on Fridays with Ron, Reggie, Julia, myself. We have a lot of fun on Friday mornings. Please subscribe to the channel. Get us to 8,000. We're very, very close. All right, in closing, good offseason talker. Which Timberwolves player needs to take the biggest leap? Now, we just talked about Anthony Edwards' Olympic leap. Maybe that's the answer, or is it somebody else on the roster? Let's go to Ron Johnson.
Well, when I looked at the Nuggets, and I hate to say it, I like the way the Nuggets have additional players. You look at Michael Porter Jr. He's the third scorer. He's averaging close to 17 points. I look at Jaden McDaniels at 12. That's one more three and maybe a layup, some free throws for him. 1 3 a game, so 4 to 5 points a game is what Jaden McDaniels. So it's not a huge leap, but it's a consistent 4 to 5 is what I'm looking for. And then every once in a while, that 25-point night, that 30-point night where everybody's like, whoa, okay, where's this? And that's what Michael Porter Jr. gives the Nuggets. He is that third scorer that they can always count on, and that we as opponents are like, I can't believe this dude. So that's what I'm looking for. Jaden McDaniels. I want Jaden McDaniels to be that guy that when teams walk in there, they know they got to stop Ant. They know Karl-Anthony Towns is a threat. But then it's Jaden McDaniels becomes that third fiddle to say, I give me the ball. I'm going to make it happen. My plus minus is going to be always positive. I'm not going to make dumb decisions. He's got to pick it up. I know Naz Reid already has his every once in a while moments, but I'm looking for Jaden McDaniels to make that leap and be that Michael Porter Jr. to that big three already set. He becomes that guy.
And it feels like he has it in him too. Playoff Jaden was great. Playoff Jaden had 5 games scoring 20 or more points. Let's get playoff Jaden more often in the regular season, Jack.
Yeah, I think for me, it's really tough because I think you want to look at Jaden. I think the opportunity for Jaden to take the biggest leap is probably there. But for the sake of a different person, I honestly think that you could make an argument for Karl-Anthony Towns in that Karl-Anthony Towns, I think everybody needed to give him a little bit of grace last season, not only because of the knee issue, obviously, into the playoffs and having to get healthy and all that, but just like his role had to change a ton with really having it being year one of the Rudy Gobert experiment this past season with everybody fully loaded and ready to go. And it took him a while to kind of find his footing in terms of, all right, how much do I need to be a playmaker? How much do I need to be a scorer? Are there certain matchups where I can be a better scorer? What lineups are going to be best for me to be a scorer on the low block versus on the perimeter, all those types of things. And I think now that he's kind of got a lot of that figured out and we saw that pop in a really meaningful way in the playoffs, I think he'll probably be a more consistent scorer in terms of him finding ways to get his and understanding the best moments for that, because the Timberwolves rotation is going to be very similar. Probably 80-85% of the minutes I would imagine are going to be the same from last season. So he's got a lot of familiarity playing with these guys. And I just think that the consistency factor, especially on nights where Ant doesn't have it, I think he did a great job in the playoffs for the most part of stepping up on nights when Ant didn't have it. You look at Game 7 against the Nuggets, that first half, he was incredible, kept the Wolves in that game to give Ant a runway to kind of help flip it. So yeah, I think Karl Anthony Towns is a guy that can really take another leap and maybe add 2, 3, 4 points per game to what he did last season. Because the foundation is already so great and he's been such a consistent player for his whole career. Now I think he'll have a lot more confidence with maybe some of the big game stuff off of his shoulders a little bit. Maybe, having a couple playoff series wins under, on his resume might free him up a little bit to take it to another level. Because we saw that, what was it, 2-3 years ago down this second half of the season, when they went to the playoffs and lost to Memphis in the first round, and he was an all NBA selection. I mean, he was fantastic. It was just another level for him. And hopefully we'll be able to see that again here before this iteration of the Timberwolves is kind of run out.
Mm-hmm. Reg?
Yeah, though you guys took the two of the guys that I was going to say. I think you just want to see more of a consistent 3-and-D presence from Jay McDaniels. No, you don't want to see any 0-for nights like we saw. If the three is not falling, seeing him attack the rim and just go get a bucket and get some confidence going in his offensive game. You need some more from him on the offensive end, because when he plays well on offense, the team does well. And so also too, yeah, to Jack's point, you just need to see a little bit more consistency from Karl Anthony Towns. There have been times where, he can be a possession killer because the ball stops with him too much, or, he's trying to unnecessarily drive and make something happen and he's out of control and he, draws the charge call and it kills a possession. And then on the defensive end, just stop being so handsy and trying to get away with stuff. I think some of these fouls are so preventable and so avoidable. And I think, we saw a little bit of that frustration from Anthony Edwards in the playoffs where he's just like, man, you just got to stop fouling. Like, the best ability is availability. And if you're in foul trouble, you're not able to be out there in a rhythm and really try to find your way out there to help the team on both ends of the floor. And so, yeah, I want to see Karl Anthony Towns score 27 points a game on a nightly basis. Give you 27 and 10 every night, and really just play that bully ball style and just put the ball on the floor a little bit more and make smart decisions, and not have to settle for three all the time. Because if the three is not falling, sometimes we've seen that really kind of derail him as well. And if he can just find ways to put the ball on the floor, or maybe even just post up a guy, give a hook shot, some type of high percentage bucket, because he can make shots, in the mid-range as well. Like, I think I want to see a little bit more of that from him as well, and not just settle for so many threes.
We thank our everydayers for tuning in every day here at Locked On Sports Minnesota. That's all for us for the Minnesota basketball party today. Next week, we'll have more offseason Timberwolves talkers and our first glimpse of the real Olympics with Ant and Team USA taking on Serbia on Sunday. For Reggie Wilson, Carol Evan, Ron Johnson, The Ron Johnson Show, Jack Borman, our postcasts, and formerly Canis Hoopus, I'm Sam Ekstrom, the executive producer here at Locked On Sports Minnesota. We say thank you for watching and for listening on the Locked On Wolves podcast feed. We'll talk to you next week.